It's funny how things change.
I used to think God lived at church. Stupid, huh?
I used to think he would only talk on Sundays and Wednesdays. He was busy the rest of the week.
Or maybe I was busy. It's funny how things change. I never really thought God cared much about what I did or where I've been.
I never thought God went with me to school or was with me at practice. I've always thought he was at church. It's funny how things change.
I know now He's in the air I breathe. He's in every step I take.
He's watching over you and he's watching over me. It's funny, he's everywhere. From the top of the mountain to the bottom of a broken heart.
Always has been, and we can find Him there.
We can find him anywhere.
I know I say it like every week, but I'm really, really excited for this series. Really, really, really excited. If you're here Sunday night or if you're part of our praxis groups, you're going to be like, this is a rerun. I've heard this before. And it's because Sunday night I got to preach a good portion of this message when I was in the refuge service. I had started really crafting this for our theme this week. Anywhere. I started to ponder a little bit about what it meant to journey with God anywhere, at any time, at any place. Where can God be found? And one of the most unlikely places that I found him, ended up finding him, was in the midst of change. And so tonight, that's what I wanted to talk about, was change. Change. Anybody in here like a fan of change? Is anybody like, I love change. Change is the best. So there's like a few of you. Okay, better question. Who hates change? Who wishes like I could set a routine and just go with it? Does anybody anybody here keep a calendar? Like I need to do these things this week. Yeah, calendar. Yeah, I keep a calendar. It's okay. I'm just messing with you. Change is difficult. Change can be really difficult, especially when you think about the way the word's been used, whether it's a politician who's used the word change and promised change, whether it is a new thing that you're involved in or a new relationship status. Anytime that you see on Facebook, it says like, such and such is in a relationship. You're like, that's great. And then when it says, like, it shows like the little broken heart thing, you're like, oh my gosh, I need to call her. I bet she's got a real broken heart, not just a Facebook broken heart. Yeah, change is hard. Change is really hard, right? And so that's what I wanted to talk about tonight. Wherever you find yourself, like on the religious spectrum, whether you're here tonight and you're like, I believe in Jesus. That's a no-brainer for me. Or whether you're a person that's like, still trying to figure out this Jesus thing, not sure if I really buy into it. I think we can all agree on this, is that change happens. No matter where you're at, no matter where you find yourself, change can come at any time. And so tonight I wanted to talk a little bit about what it's like to navigate change in your life through the lens of being a believer, in leaning on God, and leaning on His people, and believing His promises. I wanted to talk about what it is like to go through change. See, we usually cruise life at sort of this mid-altitude, like middle of the road. We do the same routine, mundane things all throughout the week, right? Monday, you wake up for school. Tell me a little bit of things about your schedule. Like, what do you do every single week? You sleep, okay? What happens during your week? Volleyball. What did you say? Eating. Yeah. Drill team. Homework. I know you don't brush your teeth. Don't say you brush your teeth every week. No, I'm just messing with you. Sleep, eat. Yeah, Joe loves to eat. Well, there's things you do each and every day of the week, Adults in here, you're like, Monday, you're rushing a staff meeting. I am. I'm like gunning it after I get out of the gym with Caleb, and I'm like, I got to get it. I'm going to be late. Everybody's going to be mad at me. Trudy's going to yell at me. No. I get there, I'm rushing to work, and I got to deal with the receipts and the finances, and, I'm just checking things off the schedule, trying to figure things out, doing the mundane, routine things every day. Well, every now and then you kind of summit a peak. You like hit the high point. You know this as like prom. Was prom a great, or like a dance, a winter formal? Was that a great experience for anybody? Anybody have a horrible experience there? Homecoming was awful. I won't bring homecoming up. Actually, how was homecoming good? Anybody have a great homecoming experience? Just say great. It was amazing. Okay, who had a horrible homecoming experience? Okay. Lesson learned, just whenever you get there, don't go to homecoming. No. Go to homecoming. But yeah, you hit these high points. Come back. You hit these high points where you're like, life is good. Life is good. You meet that boyfriend or girlfriend, you get serious. It's Facebook official. You hit those high points. Eventually you get to an engagement or a wedding or, for me, a baby. Yes. You want to talk about change? You know where I was 3 months ago? I was still married to the most smoking fine woman in the universe. I didn't have a baby. We were living in let me think. It was like a 5-story building. It was, we had a mansion. And actually it was a boys' dorm that we lived in. It was like the worst experience ever. You never want to be like, hey, when you get married, you're like, I promise you I'm going to give you a castle. You're going to love being married to me. And then I'm like, hey, boys' dorm, you're going to love this. The middle of the night, it always smells like toilet anywhere you walk. You're like, whoa, what's the matter with these people? It was disgusting all the time. Well, change. 3 months ago, I was a different person. 3 months ago, I had different responsibilities, a different job. My ministry wasn't just youth. It was college students. It was completely different. And so when change hit me, I was like, what do I do? You guys have seen the video when I found out that, you guys all see that, right? When I found out that we were pregnant, my reaction was, I couldn't believe it. Change will hit you no matter where you're at. Change happens. Go ahead, you can say it. Anywhere, anytime. Well, to get through this, I wanted to start not at the high point, not at the mountaintop not at the high mountaintop experience, not even at the middle of the road. I wanted to start from the very bottom. Because every now and then, the bottom of life kind of falls out. Every now and then, you get a phone call from the doctor that says what you've got is terminal. Every now and then, you get a phone call that says he cheated on you. Every now and then, you get the hard life news that's just like, what do I do? What do I do? And that's where I want to start, from the bottom. So if you've got your Bibles, let's turn to Genesis 39. And let's work through the story of Joseph. I'll give you a little bit of time to get there. Where are my praxis students at? Where are you at? Let me hear it. Make some noise for a sec. Okay, I promise there's more than 4 people that are in praxis. There we go. Our praxis group is going through the Joseph narrative right now, and it is absolutely blowing my mind. It is so good. Last night's meeting, I went home, I was like, I'm changed. Change happens anywhere, and it happened last night for me. It was incredible. But we're working through the Joseph narrative, and let me tell you a little bit about this story. Before we start in Genesis 39, you got to know a little bit about Joe, all right? Not this Joe, different Joe. Joe was a younger brother, all right? Joe lived in a big family, and if you ask me, I think Joe is a little spoiled. Anybody know any spoiled people? Joe? Joe? No, not this Joe. A different spoiled Joe, all right? Different spoiled Joe. Ooh, man, they all got you. I'm sorry. Joe was spoiled, all right? There's really no two ways about it. He got all the cool clothes. He didn't have to work that hard. His daddy thought he was the bomb.com. Seriously. And the reason I have a tough time with Joe's story is because I was the exact opposite growing up. Anybody not spoiled? We got any not spoiled people in here? Yeah. I kind of went to the school of hard knocks a little bit growing up. It's tough for me to relate with Joseph because when I read his story, and I see what kind of life he was living, what kind of life he sort of had handed to him, I relate to his brothers. Now, his brothers, if you know anything about this story, Joseph was sent out to his brothers one evening, and his brothers all plotted against him. They said, here comes that guy, here comes that dreamer. The dreamer that had dreams about us bowing down to him. Not only us, but the universe bowing down to him. His brothers had a really good reason to not like him, because not only did he have these crazy dreams that he flaunted in front of everybody, but his parents treated him special. He got all the special clothes. He had the easy life. His brothers had great reason to really not like him. Now, probably not so much of a reason to want to kill him, but they see Joseph walking towards them one afternoon, and they say to one another, hey, let's kill him. I'm done with this guy. That's a rough family. You know, you're like, y'all need to go see a counselor. This is bad. You have issues. You need to go to the Vale. You have some issues. Yeah. Well, his brothers see him, and they're plotting against him. And Reuben, I don't know much about Reuben, but Reuben steps in and he's like, you don't kill family, all right? You don't kill family. Let's throw him in a well. And so seriously, the brothers are like, oh, that's a great idea. We won't kill him. We'll just let him starve to death. So they throw him in the well, and they're about to walk off when all of a sudden in the distance they see a caravan of traders. They see some Ishmaelite traders in the distance, and they think to themselves, well, hey, we could probably make a few dollars here. Let's pull them out of the pit and let's sell them. That's exactly what they do. They pull Joseph out of the pit and they sell him. So Joseph finds himself in the company of people he does not even know. He's beaten, he's broken, he doesn't feel well, he has no money anymore. He's been stripped of the clothes that he loved so much. He's not near the family he knows. He doesn't speak the language. He finds himself from going at the mountaintop to the valley really quick. And not only that, if matters could not get worse, he gets sold again, this time from the Ishmaelites to Potiphar's household. Now, you're like, who is Potiphar? Basically, he works for the major political leader in Egypt. So it's like he gets sent to a really high-up person's house to be a slave. So not only is he thrown into slavery once, but he's thrown into it again. And this is where we pick up on Joseph in Genesis 39. Really, how could things get much worse? No money, no clothes, doesn't speak the language, doesn't know anybody in his company. How can things get any worse? Well, we serve a really big God, a God who is not scared of bad situations or bad circumstances. In fact, we've used this before, but when the storm comes, you don't need to be looking at the storm. You need to be telling this storm how big your God is. You need to be looking at the circumstances and the craziness of life and saying, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid. God is good. And Joseph, in leaning in that kind of way and leaning on God in this kind of way, we find him in Genesis 39, where we will pick up. So join me right there, Genesis 39:1. Now Joseph had been taken down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an Egyptian officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the bodyguard, bought him from the Ishmaelites, who had taken him down there. Now pay attention to this. The Lord was with Joseph, so he became a successful man. And he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. Now his master saw that the Lord was with him, and how the Lord caused all that he did to prosper in his hand. So Joseph found favor in his sight and became his personal servant. And he made him overseer over his house, and all that he owned he put in his charge. It came about that from the time he made him overseer in his house and over all that he owned, the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house on account of Joseph. Thus, the Lord's blessing was upon all that he owned, in the house and in the field. So he left everything he owned in Joseph's charge, and with him there he did not concern himself with anything except the food which he ate. Talk about change. This guy goes from the bottom, the very bottom, to even further down. And yet somehow, some way, God finds a way to start to turn this whole story around. And I would argue that the main character in this passage isn't Joseph. Joseph's not the one that we should be paying much attention to here. The power is in God's hands. God is the one that has made all this come about. And I'm telling you, teenagers, God is able. Whatever you all are facing right now, whatever it is, God is able. Say it with me. God is able. You can clap. God is able. Seriously, He is a big God, and I know that whatever it is you're facing right now, He can turn around. Don't believe me? Let's keep looking. Check out verse 2. He became a successful man because the Lord was with Joseph. Check out verse 3. The Lord caused all that he did to prosper in his hand. Verse 5. There's 2 times in verse 5. The Lord blessed the Egyptian's house because of Joseph, and the Lord's blessing was upon all that he owned in the house and on the field. It's the Lord's presence here that's a big deal. Still not following me? Let's fast forward a little bit. Let's fast forward. You're like, okay, so Joseph is blessed by God. Can you give me some better examples? If we fast forward a little bit, if you're familiar at all with the story of Moses, there is an incredible passage in chapter 33 of Exodus. Incredible passage. And when Casey's up here, sometimes he'll sing that song. You guys know it. I'm trying to think like what the lyrics are, and I don't want to botch this, but I don't want to go without you. You know that? Simon Cowell, where are you at? Is it called Without You? Is that what it is? Yes, Without You. Shane and Shane. I'm sorry, I did botch that. Listen, that passage that we sing, I know it comes from this chapter of Exodus. Moses is saying this. This is when the Israelites are leaving Egypt. You'd think that they would pray for, okay, we need an army, we need food, we need protection, and this is what Moses prays. He says, if your presence does not go with us, don't bring us up from here. If your presence doesn't go with us, don't bring us up from here. I don't need weapons. I don't need an army. I don't need food. I don't need anything else, but don't take your presence away. If your presence doesn't go before us, I don't want to have anything to do with it. Well, you're like, okay, great. So I see Joseph. I see Moses. You got anything else, Jeremy? I'm glad you asked. I do. David, do you guys remember when we were walking through our Happily Ever After series? Do you remember the story of David and Bathsheba? Remember that whole deal? That went down? Well, listen, when David is convicted by Nathan the prophet, when Nathan walks up and says, David, these are all the things that you did. When David gets pierced and convicted and he's like, I am sorry, God. I am so sorry. When he is found out about all the things that happened with Bathsheba and Uriah, you know what his response was? It wasn't, God, don't take my kingship away from me. Don't take the royal palace away from me. God, don't take my power away from me. God, don't take my money away from me. Don't punish me for my sin. He doesn't say any of that. This is his response. Do not cast me away from your presence, and do not take your Holy Spirit from me. David recognized it. Moses recognized it. Joseph recognized it. The big deal here is God's presence. Whatever you're facing, whatever it may be, it doesn't matter if it's a terminal illness. It doesn't matter if it's a breakup. It doesn't matter if it's an addiction. I'm telling you now, God is able. He's able. He's big enough. He is big enough to handle whatever you throw at him. And listen, teenagers, we've got to start praying not for God to, give me more money, God. I need more money. God, I need you to make me remember all the stuff that I studied during my test. These are all well and fine things to pray for, but I'm telling you, what we need to start praying for is God's presence. When God's presence is here, the blessing is here. When God's presence is in this place, the blessings follow. They have to. That's just the way it is. We need to start praying that God's presence will be in this place. On Wednesday nights, sometimes I find myself, this is just the youth pastor in me, sometimes I find myself like, God, bring 2,000 teenagers tonight. Because I dream big. I have huge dreams. God, make me the best speaker ever. God's like, no. God, fix this. God, give us better lights. They're falling. You know what I'm saying? I'm praying all these things when really what I should be praying is for God's presence. The blessings will follow when we start praying for the presence of God. Teenagers, I've got to have you wrap your minds around this. We do not need a single thing other than God's presence. That's the big deal. That is what we need to be praying for. So pray for God's presence. If you got your phones, I would love for you to tweet this right here. This is good. This is like finger licking good. This is good stuff. All right. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Here we go. In times of change, do I need to slow down? In times of change, hold on to the nearness of God. In times of change, hold on to the nearness of God. You're like, that doesn't sound that great. That's like, can you give me something tangible in times of change? Can you give me money? Can you give me a friend? No, I'll give you something better. Hebrews 13:5 promises this: never will I leave you, and never will I forsake you. And I know that this is like above, this is like nobody really cares about this, but if you read this in the language it's written, it's jam-packed with negatives in the sentence. So it to us it reads like this: I will not leave you, neither will I not forsake you. It's a promise that God is never going to leave us. No matter what change we go through, anywhere we find ourselves, God is not going to leave us. God is not going to walk off. To drive this home even more personally, in Praxis, I want to say it was a couple weeks ago. Tripp's not here tonight, right? Trip Renfro, not here? Trip brought up, we were doing our Praxis verses, and Trip brought up this incredible verse that I've heard like 100 times. And please hear this, because it changed my life, and I want it to change yours too. When I started to realize it and like work through what this meant in my mind, I was like, forgive me. It stuck with me so hard. This is Zephaniah 3:17. The Lord your God is with you. He's mighty to save. He will take great delight in you. He will quiet you with his love, and he will rejoice over you with singing. One more time. The Lord your God is with you. He is mighty to save. He will take great delight in you. He will quiet you with his love, and he will rejoice over you with singing. I don't think I understood this verse until I became a dad. And I know some of you are not dads in here. There's a lot of not dads, and I'm grateful for that. That's a good thing. Say amen. We get some amens. But this is the way that I understand this verse. The Lord your God is with you. He's never leaving. And he's mighty. He takes so much joy in who you are. He will quiet you with his love, and he will rejoice over you with singing. It means this, that when we gather in this room and we're singing to God, this is so crazy to me. He's singing back because he loves us, because he loves you. Can I grab baby back here? Is she sleeping? I'm about to ruin this. She's going to be so mad. When I was 7 years old, I got kicked out of my house. 7. I was pretty young. And the situation was, I was not my dad's real child. I was his stepchild. And I guess him and my mom had been fighting. It was a lot of really bad verbal and physical abuse. This is just like a snapshot of my testimony. But I remember my dad beating my mom really bad. And I remember him putting her head through a wall. And I remember bruises all the time and my mom crying. And I remember when the garage door would open, I would cringe. I would be frozen with fear, shaking. I didn't grow up with a father that really loved me. And some of you, I know you're in this room and you understand what that's like. I know that you grew up without a dad or a mom that cared that much about you. Or maybe you have both parents and they have just neglected you. The reason this verse means so much to me and hits so close to home is when I was 7, my parents dropped me off at my grandparents' house. And my grandfather was the one that raised me. And he was a Southern Baptist minister, previous minister. And he was battling some real bad depression. And later on, he would tell me he was about to commit suicide. And one day, this 7-year-old boy walks into his home and says, Grandpa, I love you. I get to spend some time with you. Well, I lived with him for the whole year. My grandpa would walk me to the bus stop every morning, and we would pray together. And it was just as much therapy for him as it was for me. And I came to know Jesus through my grandfather at 7 years old. It meant so much to me that I got to spend that year with him. And every night when we would go to sleep, he would cradle me in his arm because they only had a one-bedroom apartment, and I would sleep in their bed with them. And he would cradle me in his arm, and he would sing to me every night the same song. And I didn't know it at the time how much it meant to me, but looking back, I know now that it made me who I am today. It made me who I am. And so now that I have a daughter, I know what it is like to hold somebody, to cradle them, to be mighty, to rejoice over them, and to quiet them with my love. And every single night before we go to bed, I sing the same words. I change them a little bit because I've got a girl. But I sing the same words that my grandfather sang to me. And I say to her every night, she's the sweetest girl around today. And she likes to go outside and play. Daddy checked all over town. She's the sweetest girl around. She's the sweetest girl around today. Every single night. And so I know that the Lord your God is with you. He is mighty to save. He will take great delight in you. He will quiet you with his love, and he will rejoice over you with singing. In times of change, wherever you find yourself, anywhere you find yourself, lay hold to the nearness of God. Believe he's close. Know he's close. Hebrews 13:5 promises, never will I leave you, and never will I forsake you. Here's the next thing. If you want to tweet this, it's yours. This is free of charge. I won't make you pay for this. This is great. In changing times, lay hold to the unchanging nature of God. The unchanging nature of God. In changing times, lay hold to the unchanging nature of God. What does that mean? Well, I really don't have a ton to say about this, but I just want to tell you this. In the midst of your change, he's still sovereign. He still knows the future. He still knows what's going to happen to you. The death of Jesus still saves souls. He uses everything for his glory and my ultimate good. He uses change and tragedy to accomplish his will. The sorrow may come in the night, but the joy will be in the morning. And I will tell you this right now. Whether your circumstance is bad or great, whether it's easy, whether life is going great or awesome or terrible, if you find yourself in illness or health, I will tell you this. The grave is still empty and Jesus is still alive. Woo! Yeah, I love it. And that's not going to change. That's not going to change. And so when things are changing around you, when you find yourself on the mountaintop or in the desert, God ain't changed. Your circumstances might change, but God is not changing. God is not going to walk off. He's not like a rough dad or a mom that neglects you. He's not. He's never going to walk off because his love doesn't change. I want to tell you this too, especially right after a point like that where we're talking about like parents and dealing with stuff like that. I get really angry sometimes when I think about my childhood. I don't know if a lot of you had rough childhoods, but when I think about mine, it's really tough to not be bitter. Really tough, because I feel like I was cheated out of some incredible years. I feel like every child's childhood should be incredible. It should be full of cartoons and fun and love, and every day should be exciting and amazing. It should be carefree. You should never cringe when your parents walk through the door. You should never be so afraid when your dad walks through the door. That should never, ever happen. And if you've gone through that, I'm sorry. My heart, it beats for you. My heart hurts for you. But with that in mind, I want to encourage you guys, when the bitterness comes up, when the changes happen, in times of change, pray your pain out. Pray your pain out. And this is what I mean. Do anything. Shake your fist at God, scream, yell, be mad. If you've ever read the book of Psalms, it's not nice. It's not. It's very painful. If you've ever read Lamentations, you're like, this is the most depressing thing I've ever read. It is. It's like Jeremiah had a really emo journal and was like, today was bad. And you're like, what happened, emo kid? Like, cheer up. Seriously, pray your pain out. Don't be afraid to go to God with things that are difficult. That's why he's there. Lay hold to the nearness of God, know he's close, and pray your heart out. Pray your pain out. I am so tempted sometimes to do things on my own. When I get stressed out or things aren't going the ways that I want them to, I'm like, okay, what can I do better? What can I do better? Maybe if I just throw some more effort at something, if I study harder, maybe if I make a little bit more money, things will get better. No. Fix your eyes on Jesus. Run to Jesus. Pray your pain out. Pray your pain out. Psalm 142:2 says, I pour out my complaints before him. I tell my trouble before him. And this is a great verse too. This is something, if you guys had something to write with, I would tell you to write this down. This is an incredible verse, but this is a promise. This is something that you can do. When you leave this place, you can do this tonight. But 1 Peter 5:7 says, cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. I don't know about you all. I have anxiety. I do. Sometimes I'll wake up in the morning and I'm like, oh, I can't do today. Anxiety is rough. Cast all your cares on him because he cares for you. Don't be afraid to turn to God. Turn to him. But do anything but turn away. Do anything but ignore him. And the last thing that I want to tell you is this, and I want to close with this. And please pay attention to this and know you've got to hear my words. On Sunday night, when I got to do this for our volunteers, it's really dangerous to pick anybody out because of a few things. One, a lot of people will think you're playing favorites. Two, you can forget people. And I did that on Sunday night. I forgot some very, very, very special people. But I wanted to end with this, is in times of change, anywhere you find yourself, lean on his people. Lean on God's people. This room right here that we're all in, that we're all gathered in, I don't know if you realize this, but we're family. We're family. And so what one of us is going through, another one of us needs to be holding our hand to the wound to stop the bleeding. We need to be lifting one another up. We need to be carrying each other's burdens. This life is too hard and too difficult to go through alone. It is way too hard and way too difficult. So I wanted to recognize just a few people really quick for letting me lean on them in this difficult time of change and transition for me. I just wanted to recognize a few of you guys. Caleb, I just wanted to say thank you so much for, every single morning putting up with me being late every day and me not being as strong as you. Seriously, thank you. I've told you before, you're an answer to prayer. I left some people that I loved so much. Jordan, he was one of them you got to meet. I left some people I loved so much and thought, there's no way I'm going to find anybody that's got like a personality like that. And you are an answer to prayer, because that's you. So thank you. Terry, I wanted to say, yes, you, Terry, yes. Listen, man, your joy is infectious. I'm serious. I can't get around you and be sad. I wish I could box you and send you in the past to Jeremiah because Lamentations would not exist. I wish that could happen. Thank you. Thank you for your joy. Kara, I knew I saw you in here. I didn't know what side you're on. Kara, seriously, you're a rock. I am really thankful you're in this ministry. I know even yesterday when we were shooting this awkward video that took like 4,000 takes, I was thinking, we are so blessed to have her in our ministry. So thank you. Thank you for being you. Seriously. I don't want to forget. There's one other person. I don't know if they're here. From the bottom of my heart, I cannot tell you guys how much each and every single one of you mean to me. Because when I found myself in the pit, when I found myself like at the bottom, thinking, how am I going to make it? How am I going to survive? What if these students don't like me? What if I come in and I'm a total nerd? You guys said, You are a nerd, but we love you. And you held me up. So thank you. Thank you so much. I love you guys, and I just want to remind you of this, just a few things really quick. To pray your pain out, to lean on his people, to cling to his nearness, and to know that he is not far from each of us.